Review and preview. Biggest takeaways from the Raiders and the 49ers joint practice, and we look ahead to preseason game number 2. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for August 15th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day by way of the YouTube page. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line if you want to be a part of the show, 707-654-4693. Lots of good calls, lots of good texts. We'll close out the show and close out the week hearing from you. And we do appreciate hearing from you. Trust and believe you're a very important part of this show. So we'll hear from you as we close things out in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll look forward to Saturday's game at Allegiant Stadium, preseason game number 2, the only game that'll take place at Allegiant Stadium during the preseason as they close things out in Arizona, taking on the Cardinals. So this will be the one time here in town, the one time at the home stadium, you'll get an opportunity to see them. But what we'll be looking at, what is we really going to be focused in on, we'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it's really just a recap and a review of what we saw from the Raiders and the 49ers in their joint practices. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So there was a lot that I was looking forward to on Thursday's joint practice between the Raiders and the 49ers at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, and I was hoping that they were going to get so much really good work in, the Raiders and the 49ers, that you weren't going to see a lot of the starters, or my expectations were going to be that you didn't see a lot of the starters because they were going to get, so many great plays in, and, the Raiders offense and defense was going to be clicking on all cylinders. And so a lot of the young guys were going to get a lot of the burn in preseason game number 2. I think that's going to have to wait till preseason game number 3. Now, that doesn't mean that it was a bad practice from the Raiders or the 49ers. I thought it was good. Thought it was good by the Raiders. Thought it was good by the 49ers. I thought the Raiders had moments where they looked good, and they had moments where they looked bad. And I think you could say the same thing for the San Francisco 49ers. But look, we're here to focus in on the silver and black. So for them, they started slow, offensively and defensively. It seems like they were just kind of slow getting out the gates, and there was a lot of folks there in attendance, Raiders and 49er fans, and I thought that everyone was really pretty cool. Nobody acted crazy and acted a fool. I got to give a lot of credit to both teams because they didn't really get into any fights. There was a couple pushing and shoving here and there, but nothing like you have seen at other times when teams have their joint practices. But for the Raiders, they started off slow, offensively and defensively, and then finally things started clicking offensively. Brock got involved, Jacoby Myers got involved, and then Ashton Jeanty got going. And I was pretty encouraged when I saw Ashton Jeanty get going because that means that the offensive line got going. That was one of the first positives that I really saw when the offensive line started to get some push, and you saw Ashton Jeanty pick up 20 yards here, 20 yards there, go for some really big runs. And look, this 49ers defense, even though they had some key guys out along that defensive line, they still are nothing to shake a stick at. They still can get after it. And, of course, they got this dude in the middle named Fred Warner. Yeah, he's him. Fred Warner is a dude. And I'll tell you, on my radio show on Thursday, I had a lot of people that were at practice calling in and saying, hey, man, that Fred Warner guy is he's really good. Like, we all know how good he is just off a name alone. But when you're up close and personal and you actually see him operate and could take control of that 49ers defense, you understand why they're really good. But you saw the Raiders offense start to get clicking, especially when you saw the offensive line start to open up some holes for Ashton Jeanty. I thought that went really well. Geno Smith said after practice that he thought the offensive line did a really good job. And of course, that's what we're paying attention to, right? We want to see what Miller, we want to see what Parham, we want to see what Meredith, JPJ, DJ Glaze, what they can do as a unit, where it feels like to me, as long as these guys are healthy, that's going to be the starting offensive line when they go to New England, take on the Patriots in week 1. So I want to see them start to gel. I've been talking about I'd like to see them identify who their starting 5 offensive linemen are going to be sooner rather than later so they can start to gel. They can build that continuity. That's the one unit that has to be one band, one sound, and that's that offensive line. And so I do feel like that's the direction that they're headed. That's who it's going to be as long as those guys all stay healthy. So Geno said that they gave him plenty of time to deliver the ball, and he threw some really nice balls. I'll say this, Aiden O'Connell threw some really nice passes as well. Now, he wasn't done any favors because wide receivers put the ball on the ground, or even after they caught the ball, they got punched out quite a few times. I think there was way too many balls on the ground by one way or the other, either a drop ball or it got punched out, right? There was just too many times that you would see the ball on the ground. And one guy who continued to put the ball on the ground, especially early, was Trey Tucker. And that was a surprise because Trey Tucker has been really a star so far in training camp. He's been getting the ball early and often. They've been making sure that they have as a matter of fact, right? They made a priority to get Trey Tucker involved. And to me, that was really encouraging. But early in practice, he put one on the ground where he would have, turned the corner and picked up a first down and Instead, he dropped the ball, of course, it ended up being a fourth down, and they had to give the ball back to the 49ers. If this had been a game, right? It was just the reps that they were going through. And so the thing about it is when that happens, you've got to clear it. He didn't clear it. So the next time that Geno went to him, he just dropped the ball. And then he went to him again, and he put it on the ground. After the third time that he put it on the ground, Geno walked up to him, put his arm around him, and said, "Hey, we need you." And then went back to him. And then Trey Tucker continued to get better, and you saw him build and really finish off the practice really strong. Had a couple deep balls that he caught. And matter of fact, dove and caught one as he was going out of bounds. It was really nice in the end zone. So he finished off really strong, but he didn't start off strong. And on top of that, got in his own head once he put a ball on the ground. Matter of fact, there was a time when Geno Smith threw a tunnel screen to Jacoby Myers, and I told Kadri Ishmael, who's standing next to me, I said, man, I'd like to see that tunnel screen go to number one as opposed to Jacoby. Not that Jacoby can't execute it, but I'd like to see Trey Tucker, with all his speed, get behind some guys that are some big-time blockers, like a Jacoby, like a Big Mike, like a Jack Besh, and be able to pick up yards. And Kadri said, Q, they can't go to him right now, right? Because he's in his own head and he's going to put the ball on the ground. And on those tunnel screens, sometimes it's a backward pass that can end up being a fumble as opposed to just an incomplete pass. So he's got to build and earn the trust of the quarterback. So he's not going to get passes like that if he can't clear a mistake. Mistakes are going to happen. Adversity happens in games. You've got to be able to clear it. So that was one element, and I got to give Geno Smith a lot of credit for not only being a quarterback that's delivering some really good balls, but when he sees that his wide receiver needs, a little bit of, a little rah-rah and a little pep, pick me up and say, hey, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Stop thinking about it. We got you. Pat him on the helmet. He did that. The leadership that Geno Smith showed on that, I thought was really good. So that was, some of the areas that stood out to me from the joint practice. But what stood out to me the most, and this is what I talked about on my radio show following practice on Thursday, the linebackers got sucked in on crossing routes, misdirection. And it's funny, talking to Lincoln Kennedy on my radio show on Thursday, he said, well, Patrick Graham's defense has always been an attacking defense. So when that ball is snapped, they want to go. Right? It's almost like I say all the time when you open up the door with a dog in the back of the car who's been on the road trip, the long road trip, and as soon as you open up the door, it's like, boom, the dog wants to shoot out and just go. That's what the defense was doing. That's what the linebackers were doing. They were trying to attack immediately, and with a team like the 49ers, you have to be cautious and aware of all the crossing routes, all the rub routes that they go through, all the misdirection that they do. Too many times you would see guys wide open in the middle of the field. You would see guys standing there on the sideline wide open because somehow their defender got picked off. And the communication, that was the biggest issue. There was no communication. There was no passing off one player to another player, and that was the problem. So, I think it was a really good test. It was good to see it on, August 14th when it's still just the training camp and it's the preseason and getting ready for preseason game number 2, as opposed to seeing it like week 3 of the regular season. Right? I mean, now that's something that Pete Carroll, as he said, he couldn't really tell how good practice was because he was all over just kind of watching everything, so he wasn't able to kind of focus in just on one particular field. When they go back and look at the film, and I know they've done it by now, they'll see, hey, the communication wasn't there. And when you have the veteran linebackers like an Landon Roberts, when you have a Devin White, when you have a Jermaine Pratt, when you have a Jamal Adams, that communication's got to be there. It's got to be better. That's what they do. And, of course, they have young guys in the secondary, so when you're passing a player off, you've got to be able to speak to them as well, right? So I think it was a really good test to have Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers come in to have those joint practices and show them what it looks like when there's a team that uses a lot of misdirection and those crossing patterns. That was something that really stood out to me, is that the fact that they want to attack so much They're that attacking defense. They want that defensive line to get to the quarterback, and they're going downhill so quickly that they go a little too quickly. Instead of read and react, it was just boom, react. And a lot of times it was one misstep here, and one misstep in the NFL is like 3 yards, right? If you take one misstep, boom, your receiver got 3 yards on you, or whoever's about to get the ball has 3 yards on you already because of that one step that you took. So that's something to pay attention to. Obviously, we'll talk about that segment number 2 when it comes to what to look for in Saturday's game. Adam Butler, he returned to practice. He had missed a couple days of practice as he went back home dealing with the family situation, but to see him back, that was good. Dante Thornton Jr., on the other hand, he left practice. He had a potential head injury. Coach Carroll called it after practice precautionary, so we'll see if he's actually playing on Saturday. It would be good to see him back out there, and it's going to be, again, a good test coming up on Saturday just to see what this team, how they're going to react after looking at the film, knowing what they did wrong, knowing what they did right, and how they're going to counter that. But for the most part, there was good done by, the offense and defense. There was areas that they need to clean up, and then there was parts where it's just like, okay, that's going to be a concern if you don't figure that out quickly. And like I said, most of that was from that attacking defense and not being able to communicate well when there was the crossing patterns and the misdirection. That to me is what really stood out. The middle of the field was really wide open for the 49ers offense. And it's funny, on the flip side of things, when the Raiders were doing stuff really well offensively, they were attacking the middle of the defense as well, and of course, as I mentioned, Fred Warner is him. He was there in the middle of that offense, but Chip Kelly used a little bit more motion. He was able to get guys open, scheme them open a little bit, and you saw guys like Jack Besh have some good catches. You saw guys like Colin Johnson come up with some good catches. Trey Tucker, as I mentioned later in practice, Jacoby Myers, he just continues to make number 1 catches, even though everyone says he's a number 2. Oh, he's a really good number 2. All he does is make number 1 catches, and that's what he did as well. So a lot of success you saw from the Raiders, but they still have plenty to clean up, and that's why I think you'll see a lot more of the guys than I thought you would see originally. I thought they were going to get all the work in on Thursday, and then you might not see that much on Saturday, but I do believe we'll be in for quite a bit and see the veterans really get some burn on Saturday. So who will we be focusing in on? Who will I be focusing in on? That's what we'll talk about coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Nobody wants to do that. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. You can link all your accounts in a minute. You can see clear data visuals. You can categorize all your spending and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And we all know that is A1 since day one. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, it's all one word, at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. So we gave a review of what we saw on Thursday at Raiders and 49ers joint practice. So now we need to give a preview of what we're going to look for coming up on Saturday, coming up tomorrow at Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders and the 49ers preseason game number 2. First and foremost, offensive line continue to gel. Again, that's got to be probably the most important element for this Raiders team. They've got to have that offensive line in place. I think this offense is going to be really good. I think it's going to be a lot better than what we've seen in the last few years, but we know no matter how many bells and whistles they have, the offensive line has got to be in place. It's got to be one band, one sound. They've got to all be rowing in the same direction so this offense has a chance. Miller, Parham, Meredith, JPJ, Glaze. The more burn they can get together, the more continuity they can have, the more that they could become that one band and one sound. So that's going to be the obvious. We didn't see them get much burn in preseason game number 1. We saw Meredith and JPJ go into the third quarter. I want to see this entire unit work together. And when one of these guys goes out, the other guys go out. Like Lincoln Kennedy says, when he was in practice, one guy fought, everyone fought. That's what I want to see. I want to see these guys fight together. I want to see these guys rest together. When one goes out, when Miller's ready to go out, then that means the offensive line it's a full change. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to be like that, but I just want these guys to be in lockstep with each other. So the offensive line is always going to be the most important part of this training camp, of this preseason, as they're preparing for week 1 and the New England Patriots. Want to get to the wide receivers. I'll be paying attention to them. Trey Tucker, Jack Besh, Dante Thornton Jr., if healthy, right? Would love to see him out there. If he's out there, that means that whatever happened on Thursday, the little precautionary reason why he left the practice was only precautionary, and there's nothing to look at. You don't want to have guys banged up already. The thing is, with the Raiders, they have talent, but they don't have a ton of depth. They have plenty of young guys that we all feel pretty good about. Oh, I think this guy could do that. I think that guy could do that, but it's not proven. So they don't have the proven depth there. So a guy like Dante Thornton Jr., you want him to be out there at the same time as you have a Trey Tucker, at the same time as you have a Jacoby Myers. Like, you want to see all those guys out there at the same time. They need to prove as a wide receiver group that they don't need a veteran wide receiver. There's a lot of rumors right now floating around that they could be on the hunt for a veteran wide receiver. I've been as a matter of fact, that I don't think that they need one. I think they have all the pass catchers they need between Brock Bowers, Big Mike, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, obviously, Trey Tucker. He's got to be on point. Dante Thornton Jr., Jack Besh. I mean, these are guys that can all make plays, right? So I feel like that they don't need a veteran wide receiver, but they've got to go out there and prove that to the powers that be. They've got to let John Spytek and Pete Carroll know, no, don't worry. We got this. You don't have to go outside the building. I got you covered. So the wide receivers need to continue to show who they are. And, I'll go back to Trey Tucker, who's had a really good training camp. You cannot let one drop turn into 2 drops, turn into 4 drops, turn into 8 drops. Like, you just can't. You cannot let one loss beat you twice. You cannot let one rep turn into 2 bad reps. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't do it. You've got to be able to do your best job of just clearing it. So that's where Trey can start to continue to evolve as an NFL wide receiver. Ish is going to happen, right? Adversity happens. That's the name of the game when it comes to the NFL. It's how do you deal with adversity? Trey's got to do a better job of it. And again, I give Geno Smith a lot of credit for going over to him, giving him a little pick-me-up and saying, hey, man, we got you. I believe in you. I trust you. And even delivered the ball to him again, right? Just letting it be known, like, hey, man, I know you put one on the ground. I'm not going to stay away from you for the rest of the game or the rest of the period out here. I'm going to continue to feed you the rock because, well, you need to be a part of this offense. We need you to be able to succeed. Running backs, Raheem Mostert, Sincere McCormick. It's all just about wrapped up as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Genty and Zamir White. That's 1-2 right there. This is the competition now is between Mostert and McCormick. Right, there was a point where I was saying the competition could be Mostert and McCormick. There's no doubt about it. It's those 2 guys, right? Who can do the most? Who's going to prove to be the most trustworthy, right? Who's going to be the guy who's most valuable at this stage of the game? The wily veteran and Raheem Mostert, been there, done that, really good blocker, a guy that can find the end zone, or a guy like Sincere McCormick that's shown flashes of being really good but hasn't been able to stay healthy. So those 2 dudes got a lot of work to do. Dylan Lobby, he's going to do his thing by special teams. I know he's a running back. I get that. But he's going to do what he does by way of special teams. So that's a whole nother conversation. Defensively, Caillou Blue-Kelly, Darian Porter, that competition at the cornerback spot. Eric Stokes got one spot locked down, right? We can see that. But when you look at Caillou Blue-Kelly, when you look at Darian Porter, you're seeing these guys rotate now more with the ones. You're seeing Caillou get some run with the ones, more run than he was ever getting with the ones. And this is a guy that had a couple bad days at the cornerback position, but was able to, like I've been saying about Trey Tucker, clear it and just get back to having some good reps. He was able to do that, overcome it, and really climb up the depth chart. So he went from a guy that was like 3rd on the depth chart to now he's running with the ones at times. So as we've seen, Pete Carroll's talked about competition. I know everyone's not a big fan of the competition when it comes to certain players. Caillou Blue-Kelly is, it's looking like he's the recipient of him winning in competition. Darian Porter is still a rookie. I have high expectations for him, but he's still a rookie, so he's trying to figure things out where Caillou's been in the league at least a couple years, right? He was in the Baltimore Ravens organization. They drafted him, and now he's with the Raiders for another year, so he's starting to figure things out. So he could figure to be a major player when it comes to who's going to earn that starting job. The nickel corner, Darnay Holmes has that right now, but Greedy Vance is a guy to watch out for at that position as well. And there's other young corners, but I don't think that they're ready. Like a JT Woods, I've been talking about him for a while, safety, turn corner. He's a guy for depth. He's not a guy that's competing for the starting spot at this stage of the game. Thomas Booker IV, going to talk about him a lot, right? Every time he's out there on the grass, everyone's going to say, okay, what is he doing? Because he cost the Raiders Jacorian Bennett, right? That's how a lot of people are going to look at it. Well, JB would be out there right now. Well, what's this Thomas Booker doing? Was this a good trade or not? And I think that it ended up being a good trade. As much as I like Jacorian Bennett, I think that Booker is going to be able to provide a lot for this Raiders defensive tackle room. And Pete Carroll said that he's competing for a starting job. I mean, think about that. He's competing for a starting job. So JB, who was running with the threes, was not competing for a starting job. Thomas Booker absolutely is, right? And he's shown a lot. I actually got a chance to catch up with him for a few minutes after practice and just, chop it up off the record and just ask him about the opportunity that he has, with the Raiders, and knowing that he was in a deep defensive tackle room there in Philadelphia, knowing that there's more opportunity with the Raiders, and he's fired up. He's pumped up. His mom was in town. His mom said, man, the life of an NFL mom, right? I'm all over the place, but it seems like a really good dude, really smart dude, and a guy that's ready to go to work. So I'm excited to see what Thomas Booker IV could bring to the table. So that's someone to look out for, but also the rest of the defensive tackle room, right? Again, I said Adam Butler returned to practice. That's great. Right, he's not a guy that I think really needs reps, except for he missed a couple days of practice. So you might see him, get a couple series, maybe even get a quarter on Saturday. But Jonah Laulu, right? Is he going to be able to step up? Right? Who else is going to step up? Thomas Booker IV, is he going to step up? Right? Who else in that defensive tackle room wants to step up and be the guy? Right? There's plenty of dudes in that room, but can they fill the void that they have? Right? Behind Adam Butler, who else is going to want to step up? I've talked about Malcolm Kuntz. Would like to see him continue to show what he can do 1 year after tearing his ACL and seeing if he's all the way back. So he's another guy that I got my eye on for sure. And again, all in all, I thought that there was a chance that some of these starters weren't going to get some burn on Saturday because they were going to put in so much good work on Thursday. I just don't think there was enough good work to justify that. I think that they need more time on task, which, look, Pete Carroll probably would have done this anyway. Probably would have had these guys get some burn just like he did in mandatory minicamp day 3, where most teams say, hey, go ahead and break for the summer. And he put in the work and then went overtime, right? Went longer than the practice was actually scheduled for. He's probably a guy that doesn't plan on taking too many days off or taking too many reps off. So he mentioned it after practice on Thursday. Everybody is live again, which doesn't mean that everyone's going to play, but that's what he said before week 1 of the preseason. You saw that all the starters got some burn as well. So offensive line needs to continue to gel. The wide receivers need to prove that they don't need to add a veteran wide receiver to the mix. They don't need to go sign one off the streets, or they don't need to trade for one either, because there's some rumors that there could be a potential wide receiver that they're looking at by way of trade. Don't want to see them have to do that because I don't think that they need to, but these wide receivers got to prove to them that they don't. Mostert and McCormick, that running back competition, the cornerback competition, Caillou Blue-Kelly, Darian Porter, and others. See how that shakes out. Starters, play a little bit more than they probably expected that they might play. Defensive tackle room competition, Thomas Booker, Jonah Laulu and more. Like, they've got to continue to get their grind on and just compete, and put on a show for Raider Nation that'll be at Allegiant Stadium coming up on Saturday. So that's what I'm looking for in the game. Myself and Lincoln Kennedy will be on the pregame and postgame show. So from the pregame, we'll be at the Torch. I think it starts at 11 a.m. So we'll be there from about 11 a.m. to 12:30 doing the show, and then we'll hang out a little while after that. And obviously kickoff is at 1. Then we'll do the postgame show from the broadcast booth up in the press box. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a fun Saturday. And if Raider Nation, you're going to be at Allegiant Stadium, I do encourage you to come on by the Coors Light Landing, come by the Torch, say what's up. Big Lincoln will have no problem taking a picture with you, signing autographs. Super cool dude. So, if you want us to come up and say what's up, we'll definitely be there to say hello to you and hang out with the rest of Raider Nation. Coming up in segment number 3, we want to hear from you. Your calls and your texts, 707-654-4693. We close out the show hearing from you. Before we get to that, though, I do want to let you know this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. This year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. Plenty of shows are playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And look, Yahoo Fantasy has been doing it for many moons, 28 years as a matter of fact. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. They kicked it off. They dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a great new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season right around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for great announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from Raiders 783 in Fresno, Cali. That's the 559. He's calling to talk about some observations and thoughts from the offseason, training camp, and even the upcoming season. Here he is, Raiders 783 in Fresno.
Hey, Q. This is Raiders 783 in Fresno. I just wanted to call and shotgun a few thoughts and observations from the off season and what's been talked about. First off, I want to thank you for your show. It's a quality product, and we enjoy listening to you and having you around. There's other things we can listen to, but you're top of the heap here. To start off with, I'm surprised how fast we're getting past the whole Christian Wilkins thing, myself included. I almost forgot that he was on there, but I don't know what other teams' scorecards are like, but it's amazing that we've had these big signings just not work out. I mean, there was the sad case of Javon Walker. There was Roger Saffold that, now you see him, now you don't. We signed him, didn't sign him, don't know. Randy Moss, who had that narcoleptic season that pretty much ended his career with the Raiders. A little cameo from Martavis Bryant. A little circus of narcissism from Antonio Brown and his BS. And Trent Brown and his meandering motivation and maturity. And now Christian Wilkins. His saga ends with a kiss that no one wanted, apparently. I didn't see that one coming. It wasn't on my bingo card, but now it seems like ancient history now that the season's getting along and completely focused on the guys that are playing and working to make this team. And speaking of Wilkins' position, there's a lot of guys at defensive tackle, and I think it's going to be interesting to see the couple guys that step up, but we're going to need them to step up to make that a really good rotation because I think Jim Harbaugh is building a big, strong line there in San Diego with some big running backs, and I think it's going to take more than one or two big guys up front. It's going to take a rotation of guys to really keep up with that kind of pounding. So another area that seems really inexperienced where we need people to step up is defensive backs and even wide receivers. But I would have preferred that they had maybe kept Nate Hobbs. My opinion from yours was just a little bit different. You seemed concerned about his injuries. I wasn't. But now given his surgical status there in Green Bay, I think your opinion is starting to prevail a bit on that much. But we do have a lot of unheralded people at that position, and it'll be interesting. That's the exciting thing about having people that are young and don't have a track record in the NFL is you don't know which one's going to break out, but it'll be fun and when it does happen. The other thing I'll do before I go is a lot of people were hyping Cam Miller after their first game, and I'm excited that it was good. It was a good start, but it's like having 100-question test and you got the first 5 right. That's a good start, but he's not exactly threatening for he's trying to make the team at this point. So
thanks so much for the call, my man. Appreciate you. And, man, you brought up some names for real, man. You dug into the crates. Javon Walker, AB, Randy Moss, Roger Saffold, and then, of course, Christian Wilkins. None of those guys worked out well for the Raiders. Devontae was very short-lived. Man, that's – yeah, you definitely pulled up some names for real. As far as the competition you're talking about, though, you're spot on. Defensive tackle room, cornerbacks, yeah, we'll get to see more from that collective tomorrow coming up at Allegiant Stadium. And when it comes to Cam Miller, I've been saying this. I know a lot of people got excited by what they saw and didn't get excited because Aiden O'Connell had a rough showing in game number 1. There's no need to rush Cam Miller in there, right? Aiden O'Connell will be the quarterback, the backup quarterback this year. Cam Miller has plenty of time to grow. There's no need to rush him on the field. He could be QB number 3, and they can figure out what they got in him. They have already reset the backup quarterback market. They've got 4 years on his deal, so there's no rush to get him on the field. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Tony in Colorado. He says, hey, Q. Tony from Colorado here. Love the show. Love the passion. Quick question regarding Touchdown Tommy. I've heard little about him and his development. Are they trying to maybe sneak him onto the practice squad? I don't think he'll be contributing much this year, but would like to know if anything has developed. That's Tony in Colorado, and thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about Touchdown Tommy. Haven't seen a whole lot from him. There's every once in a while there's a Touchdown Tommy sighting. I could see this Raiders team easily trying to, release him, waive him, slide him through waivers. I could see, and then put him back on the practice squad. I could see them doing that. He just hasn't done too much, right? I mean, remember, this is a quarterback turned wide receiver trying to make that transition. Everyone can't do it. I know that he's a Julian Edelman fan. I know that there's, comps to Julian Edelman because of what he has said that he's trying to do and what he wants to do. But everyone's not Julian Edelman, and it's not an easy transition. So I do think that they're still going to be very patient with them. I can see them trying to, like I said, slide him through waivers and then put him on the practice squad. I don't know how much, attention he's garnered and how much attention he actually deserves from what he's done, right? I mean, there was a big buzz around him after the Raiders drafted him. I don't know if there's still a big buzz. So if there is a big buzz, and maybe that's why we haven't seen too much from him, then maybe somebody would claim him off waivers. But I just don't think right now he's actually earned the right to be claimed off waivers and put on the active roster if they were to try to waive him like that. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot, and I'm with you. I don't think he's going to contribute a whole lot this year, and if he does, it'll be by special teams. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a quick call from King Raider in Compton, Cali. He's calling to try to put in perspective what we've seen so far from this Raiders team in the preseason.
Hey, what's up, Q? It's your boy King Raider out here in Compton, Cali. I just want to say I agree with everything you guys are saying. You, Lincoln Kennedy, trust what the coaches are doing. Trust what the players are going to do. Let's see what happens. Like, it was one preseason game, and everybody's all up in arms. Let us roll. Let us see what happens the first actual week of football. Overreacting over one preseason game ain't gonna help nobody. Keep doing your thing. You and Ari, man, are the best. Very nice for life. King Raider out.
King Raider, thanks so much for the call. Yeah, man, it's one preseason game, right? I think it's going to look better on Saturday. I know it's looked better this week, right? Just from the missed tackles. These guys have been working on tackling, and I know that they're not tackling to the ground. And even on Thursday, they weren't tackling to the ground because they're trying to make sure everyone stays up. But just from the drills that the Raiders have been working, from their coaching staff to the players, they've been really working on technique, fundamentals, wrapping up, everything that they've got to do. So I'm sure that alone is going to look a lot better, which will make the game look a lot better on Saturday. But, ideally, they look better each and every time that they take the field, right? In the preseason, you want to continue to, progress and get better. And I think that they're going to do that. They just have to go out there and show that they're going to do that. And their next chance to do that is coming up on Saturday at Allegiant Stadium. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. Got a text from Jamal in South Carolina. It says, "Hey, Q, something you do inspires me. I actually lost my grandmother last August. So how you do a game for your son, I do a game for my Nana. She was in Michigan. She was a Michigan football fan. The last game that she watches starts with a playoff game versus Alabama in the national championship. So Nana's games have a special place in my heart. I'm an Eagles fan, but I like the Raiders too because of my grandfather." Sorry for the long text, but you have a really great show. That's Jamal in South Carolina. And thanks, man. I do appreciate the text and just passing along that information. And, to know that, something that I do in honor of my son who, we lost in 2020 to a car accident is something that, inspired you to, have a game for your Nana. Like that's really cool. And, it means a lot that you're willing to share that with us. And again, like I try to create a family, relationship and family feel here on the show. And a lot of times it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we try to do the best. And so I definitely appreciate that. And hopefully that, that brings you a little bit of peace and some joy, to yourself when you know that you're dedicating that game for your Nana, man. Really cool stuff. Thanks so much for the text. I definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Eric in Oakland, the 5 and Dime. He's calling to talk about the game on Saturday with San Francisco and also has something to say about running back Ashton Genty. Here's Eric from the town.
Yo, what up, Q? This is Eric from Oakland calling up here and listening to these podcasts here off these joint practices with the 40 Winers. Well, hey, I'm definitely looking forward to this game on Saturday. I definitely want to see the trenches do well. offensive line, defensive line. Malcolm Kuntz, man, we need you to be what you were a couple years back, man. We definitely need you. Or last year, whenever that was, that you killed it. I believe it was 2023. As far as Ashton Jeanty, look, Raider Nation, check this out, man. I know you are not going to like what I have to say, but, you know, there was a lot of hype around this guy coming out the draft, man. And, you know, I feel like it's a waiting game for me to give him the credit that everyone is giving him and all the hype. You know, this guy comes from Boise State, which is a smaller school with not high-level talent on defense and D linemen and, you know, solid linebackers and everything you need to, you know, be one of the top defenses. You know what I mean? So I think we need to hold off on all this Ashton Jeanty hype. Let the kid, you know, have a few games in the league before we start pushing all this hype on him. I think the NFL, all the scouts and everything, like, everybody's putting a lot of hype on this dude, man. And I just hate to compare this guy and kind of look at his ups and his possible downs. You know, there's this guy, and I hate to bring him up and compare him to this guy, but, you know, there's another individual running back by the name of Trent Richardson, which had a lot of hype with this guy, and he didn't, you know, quite frankly pan out. I'm definitely hoping this is not the same case scenario, but, you know, let's hold off on that hype. Let this kid run. Offensive line needs to play its part for this guy to succeed. So hopefully our O-line does his thing, and Ashton Jeanty does as well. So, you know, let's hold off on that hype. Q, I'm excited. I'm ready for Saturday. Let's go, though. Raider Nation all day, baby.
Big Eric, thanks so much for the call. I do look forward to the trenches on Saturday as well. Offensive line, defensive line. Obviously, they've got to do some big things. Malcolm Kuntz as well. I talked about him in segment number 2. But, yeah, what he did in the second half of 2023, man, he had 8 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in 9 games. I mean, that's like on Defensive Player of the Year type pace. Obviously, that was the second half of the season. But if he had been doing that all season, this guy had like 16, 17 sacks or 16 sacks and 6 forced fumbles. I mean, that's an incredible season, right? That's TJ Watt, Max Crosby. That's big time Myles Garrett type season. So, yeah, the Raiders need him to be back in that shape. And I'm just interested to see how healthy he is coming off a torn ACL just 1 year removed, right? So that's my big thing when it comes to Malcolm Kuntz. He's got to continue to grow and get healthy. He looks good. He looks like he's in good spirits out of practice. I'll tell you that. Most of the time he doesn't even have a knee brace or a sleeve on, which is also positive, meaning that he's very healthy and very confident in that knee. So that's a good thing. As far as Ashton Jeanty goes, I mean, look, he works too hard to be Trent Richardson, right? Jeanty has the skill set and the work ethic to be great, right? I mean, look, it's funny. Geno Smith said on Thursday following practice during his media session, he said that Jeanty went up to him on Wednesday after practice and said, hey, this rep we did, I didn't do it correctly. How do I need to do it correctly? What do I need to do? Why wasn't it so smooth? And Geno pointed it out to him, told him what he needed to do, came back on Thursday, the very next day, boom, did it perfectly. So Geno said that shows that he's coachable. That means that he's hungry to learn, and he's just that kind of guy. So I just don't see him being very Trent Richardson-like. Trent Richardson, there was a lot of reason why he wasn't good after being drafted as high as he was, and a lot of it was on him. Jeanty doesn't have those traits, so I do think he's going to be really good. I'm not calling him a Hall of Famer or anything like that. He's got to go out there and earn that, but this dude's going to be a key cog to this Raiders offense, and that offensive line is going to have to do their part so he can do his part as well. Got a text from Juan in L.A. He says, what's up, Q? It's Juan in L.A. I'll keep this short and sweet. For all the fans hating that JPJ isn't playing center, I like to see it as it is. It's better to have JPJ with experience backing up Meredith at center than Meredith no reps or experience backing up JPJ. Q, thank you for being the voice of the Raider Nation and walking us off the ledge. Keep up the great work. That's Juan in L.A. And thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you and the kind words as well. And look, I'm not the voice of Raider Nation. Raider Nation is the voice of Raider Nation, right? Raider Nation has their own voice, and that's why hosting this show is incredible. Right? I say it all the time that Raider Nation is the best fan base in all of sports, not in football, in all of sports, right? Very knowledgeable, very smart about what they're watching, and passionate about the team. So, we all play a part in the voice that is Raider Nation. But I'm with you when it comes to JPJ and Jordan Meredith, and I think that for what the Raiders are trying to do, it makes sense what they're trying to get accomplished with Meredith as a center and JPJ as the right guard. Let's see, you got one more quick call. We'll get this one from Robbie, the Northwest Raider, also calling to talk about JPJ and Jordan Meredith and how they're currently positioned as a center and the right guard. Here's Robbie, the Northwest Raider.
What up, Q, Ari, Raider Nation? This is Robbie, the Northwest Raider, calling in. I know there's been a lot of talk about, JPJ not being in the center position right now with Meredith there. First, I'm a huge fan of JPJ being in the center position, and I am a huge fan of Meredith as well. However, one thing that I've been kind of mulling over back and forth, all through school, I played in the trenches. One thing that I don't think we're considering is the physicality of JPJ and his willingness to want to hit people and pancake in a position with the right guard and the way that Chip Kelly might want to run the offense as well as Carroll and with the running game. We're going to see a lot of pulling, right? And we might have the physical attributes that JPJ possesses that's going to benefit that a little bit more versus coming off the ball and snapping it. It's a lot harder for the center to snap the ball and then get off and get a step in to pull the correct way. So if you want a guy with physicality to take around these newer backs that are quicker and bigger and stronger, that are coming off the outsides or even blocking or cornerbacks coming in on blitzes, you want JPJ out there. So if we can get him set up a position where he's pulling from a right guard position or a left guard position and coming across and getting some momentum to block for Gentile, Mostert, or the running back committee, that might be what's kind of in the mindset. Not saying that's for sure, but that's what I've been kind of tossing in my mind recently. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Hoping for a good season. Pretty pumped up. But anyways, like always, go Raiders.
Robbie, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And my man Lincoln Kennedy said it on the Raider Squad show Thursday morning that you want to have a mauler in the middle. That's what he called him, a mauler in the middle. And, having JPJ at the right guard spot for what they're trying to do is that mauler, is that tough guy, is that road rager, right? He's that guy that's got to go out there and set the tone. Right. But he's got to also do it like Richie Incognito said, got to set the tone, got to have the proper technique, got to know what he's doing, not just go out there on natural ability. He's got to be very sure and consistent with what he's doing. And I do think that you're going to see him continue to get better and better and better at that. It seems like he's embraced the role. Saw him playing a little air guitar on Thursday. That's a positive, right? Just like I said with Devin White, playing the air guitar, all is good. JPJ playing the air guitar, all is good, right? That means that they're in a good head place, and that's the kind of thing I like to see, and I want to continue to see this offensive line come together. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. That's going to do it for this week. Another week in the books, just like that. Preseason game number 2 coming up at Allegiant Stadium on tomorrow. Again, Lincoln Kennedy and myself will be on the pregame and the postgame show. Starts at 11 a.m. and we'll be at the Torch there on Coors Light Landing, so definitely come on by. Say what's up. We'd love to meet you. Love to chop it up with you, as we always do. And like I said, if you're going to be at the game, enjoy the game. Get there early. Soak in Allegiant Stadium if it's your first time there. If you've been there many times, well, do what you do. Have a good time. We'll be back on Monday. Of course, we'll be talking about what we saw at the game on Saturday. We'll have another Raider Squad show with Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. And we'll just keep this party rolling as the Raiders head into the final week of the preseason. Then we're going to be talking about cut downs. 53-man cut down, right? And who's going to make the practice squad? That's going to be some tough decisions for Pete Carroll and company. But we'll talk about that. We'll start that conversation coming up on Monday. So have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the game, Raider Nation. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, just win, baby.